Daniel joined practically every club he saw, including Mini Study Club, Suki's Dragon Club, Virginia Sports Club, and Nature Club, which was headed by a senior I had forgotten the name of. He tried to get me to join Nature Club with him, and while going on long hikes sounded interesting, I had no real interest in learning to tell the difference between different varieties of mushrooms. Daniel did, because he wanted to know how nature here differed from the woods he grew up in, and I couldn't fault him for that. It just wasn't my thing. Especially when Hieronymous made it more than clear that he wanted me to be treasurer again, although I honestly spent most of campaign week helping Daniel out with his campaign. He had decided to call himself the Golden Eagle as a symbol of adopting American values, which he hoped would make him more likable. Donald has suggested he call himself the Cock of the Walk, but Daniel quickly passed when I explained that a name like that could have unsavory connotations. Daniel, to his credit, seemed to be going all in on his campaign, shouting to all of the freshmen that passed his table in the quad. I shouted along with him, even getting Donald and Virginia to help out, while Ellen managed my table, which was notably quieter and less decorated than its competitors. I had decided to keep using my Lady Lampshade moniker, so Ellen just sat at the table wearing a lampshade over her head. If anything, I figured I could at least explain to Hieronymous that it was an act of performance art, and people who were actually interested in my position could walk over at any time to see what kind of platform I was running. In the meantime, I was more than happy to help Daniel out. He had even gone as far as to ask his parents for an extension of his allowance so that he could buy stylized, customized cupcakes for members of the freshman class. Each of the cupcakes that had a golden eagle made out of icing sugar perched on the top of the chocolate frosting, and it was all we could do to stop Virginia from eating them when our backs were turned. Overall, though, it was much more fun running Daniel's campaign than trying to worry about my own. I wasn't sure exactly why, but I just really didn't want to be treasurer again. Maybe it's because the mailroom brought back too many bad memories for me, but honestly, I didn't really want to have to analyze my thoughts to come up with a good enough reason to tell Hieronymous that I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to, and that should have been good enough. Too bad it wasn't. "Good morning, beautiful," Hieronymous says as he wakes me up the morning of the campaign speeches. "Rise and shine. Today is a big day for you." "Actually, I'm not feeling well," I tell him as I pull the blanket closer around myself. "Maybe we should just let Manuel have it and call it a day." Hieronymous immediately pulls the blankets away from me, throwing them on the floor beside him. "If you are, in fact, ill, then it's nothing a quick touch of green magic won't cure." I pout and get out of bed, not looking at him. "I really don't want to do this." Hieronymous shakes his head. "Tori, I can appreciate you having nerves before your big speech, but you have been elected twice in a row now. You don't have any competition for Mr. Blazing, who, I'm assured, is set to be class secretary. This position is only yours to lose." "One can only hope," I mutter under my breath, which only earns a blank stare from Hieronymous. "Oh, come on, you know I'm not really interested in winning." "And I'm not interested in you losing," Hieronymous continues. "Although I admire the way you put your friend's needs before your own and assisted Daniel with his campaign, you have your own responsibilities to take care of. I didn't interfere with your unique method of campaigning this year, but I'm not going to sit by and allow you to let your laziness get the better of you." "Laziness?" I demand. I'm almost finished getting dressed, and I quickly throw on the rest of my clothes. "Laziness? I know I said I wanted to sleep in on Saturday mornings, but do you really think that's all the reason that I have for wanting to back out of this? I almost died in that mailroom if Potsdam hadn't intervened and you hadn't agreed to marry me. And then last year, I had a lot of conflicting feelings about going into the mailroom and seeing you there every Saturday morning. Sometimes I couldn't wake up early enough to get down there, and other times I dreaded it so much I felt like I'd rather rip my liver out and eat it than have to go. And then I ended up having to sleep there after my roommates kicked me out. So maybe it's like a badge of honor or something to have the title for all 4 years here, but who am I really impressing with it? I don't want to do it, and that should be good enough for you, but you'd rather see me doing something I hate for an entire year in the name of responsibility than actually listen to how I feel. Hieronymous looks like he's just been slapped. To be honest, I wasn't quite sure where it was coming from either. Did I really have such strong feelings about going back to being treasurer again? Would it really be so bad, especially if Hieronymous was there with me each morning? Tori, Hieronymous says softly, I'm sorry, I didn't... Save it, I snap. I'm out the door without another word. The campaign speeches aren't until this afternoon, and as I sit on Advanced Green Magic with Professor Van Braun, I can't help but think that maybe I was too harsh on Hieronymous. He still couldn't put into words why he wanted me to take this title so badly, but maybe he couldn't put it into words any better than I could. Maybe he wanted to have accomplishments of my own, to say that I was elected to this position on my own merit, and not just because I was a teacher's wife. Although, if anything, my marriage to Hieronymous was probably more of a reason for people to not vote for me. As class ends, I hang out in the quad with Virginia, Ellen, and Donald. Daniel was off doing some last-minute campaigning, and I didn't blame him. The freshman assembly was last this year, which meant that I would find out if I was treasurer before Daniel's election. At least it meant that we could sneak into the back of the auditorium and watch after mine was over. Tori, Hieronymous says as he sweeps up to me, might I have a word? I consider telling him off in front of them, but the quad was crowded, and that would only incite rumors. The last thing I wanted was for our relationship to be the talk of the school. Again. Of course, I say brightly, as if nothing's wrong, and Hieronymous can barely conceal the look of surprise as I hop up and bounce on my toes, following him over to the trails where it was less crowded. I must say, I'm surprised to garner such an enthusiastic reception considering your exit this morning, he murmurs, keeping his voice low so as not to be overheard. There are people around, I say brightly, keeping the enthusiastic reflection in my voice in case someone might overhear us. Who knows what people might say if they saw us fighting in public? Hieronymous looks taken aback as he grabs my arm and drags me into a nearby copse of trees. Tori, I am sorry about this morning. I had no idea that you vehemently opposed re-election for the reasons you stated this morning. If you had told me, I never would have pushed you. It's fine, I say as I shake my head. I still don't understand your reasoning for why you want me to do it, but if it means that much to you, I'll do it. I know I didn't do much campaigning, so I'm going to have to go out there and give one heck of a speech. Hieronymous nods on his lower lip, looking unsure whether or not to try to encourage me to continue or convince me to drop out. Tori, I should get back there and make it look like I'm making an effort, I say as I glance back towards the gym. It's going to be starting soon. Kiss for good luck? Without waiting, I lean forward and kiss him quickly before I go bounding back through the trees, heading for the quad. What was that about? Virginia asks, getting some last-minute pointers on what to say before your speech. I needed a kiss for good luck, I tell her brightly, and all three of them exchange awkward glances before they burst into a fit of laughter. Gross, Donald chimes in, but Ellen just smacks his arm lightly. I will never understand what you see in him, Virginia agrees, but we should get you over to the gym. I heard they made some changes from last year. Considering that last year Hieronymous was willing to rig the votes in my favor, I had a feeling that Potsdam might try to make some changes, and I wasn't wrong. This year, Hieronymous sat on the stage along with her. Each student had to go up to the podium in full view of everyone, make their selections on the ballot, and then drop them into a box, which would be counted right then and there to allow for total transparency. Considering I was married to one of the teachers who was responsible for overseeing this position, I could understand why they would find it necessary. I didn't pay much attention to the class president speeches. It was obvious to everyone that Minnie was going to win, and even Suki didn't really seem sure why she was at the podium. Manuel gave a good speech about how he felt that it was his year to show his school spirit and support the school through the treasury position, which garnered a decent amount of applause from the audience. Then, at last, it was my turn. I walked up to the podium slowly, dreading each moment. It was like my nerves became more and more frazzled with every footfall. I could see Hieronymous's forced impassive gaze and Potsdam's saccharine sweet smile just to the right of the podium as I approached, but I couldn't help but suddenly feel dizzy. I was nervous before, but this seemed like something else entirely. I didn't want this position. Hieronymus wanted me to have this position. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't even bring my notes from last year with me. I vaguely remembered saying I would be a good pick for treasurer because I could count well, but what did that have to do with anything, really? Did I want this position or not? Did I want this position or not? Did I want it or not? I'm standing at the podium and I can feel everyone's eyes on me. Everyone is watching me to see what I'll say, but I don't know what to say yet. The silence is starting to go on for too long, and I manage a meek, "Hi," into the microphone. Did I want this position? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no, Tori? Now is the time to make a decision. "Hi," I say with more enthusiasm in my voice as I come to a sudden decision. "You probably remember me as Lady Lampshadehead. I've been treasurer for the past 2 years. You probably didn't see me campaign too much this year, but that's because I was trying to help my friend Daniel Callister, the Golden Eagle, run for class president. If you know any freshmen that you're friends with, tell them to vote for him." Silence. They don't care about him. They're here for me, and now is the time for me to sell myself. So, anyway, I'm just here to say that you really don't have to vote for me. This is met with immediate attention from the audience as murmurs begin to ripple through the crowd in front of me. I can see Hieronymus's eyes go from shock to angry, but I ignore it. Thinking it over, I really don't want to be treasurer again. I continue. I mean, when I was a freshman, I thought it was like a really important position, but Minnie has everything set up so well, I don't feel like I really do much of anything. I did pick out those pink peppermint scented photos for the Thanksgiving sale our first year. That was on me, but otherwise the most I do is deliver packages and slip the $5 allowance under your door every morning. Like, really, do you know how long that takes? It takes a long time. Like, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. every single Saturday from this Saturday to the end of the year. That's miserable. And you know what's more miserable than that? Having to face Grabby at 5 a.m. every morning, because if you think he's bad in class, well... I let my voice trail off as I tilt my head to the side in consideration. This draws a few laughs from the audience, but it's strained. I don't look at Hieronymus. So, yeah, I know we're married and everything, which honestly is probably even more of a reason you shouldn't vote for me. But honestly, it's just not a fun job. Waking up at 5 a.m. to stuff money in envelopes is as boring and repetitive and as antithetical to fun as it sounds. Making me treasurer again would honestly be like punishing him, because it's going to make me cranky, and then that's going to make him cranky. And true, you don't have to deal with it this year, but think of the freshmen who have to put up with everything that you did last year. I clap my hands together and throw one fist in the air, cheerleader style. So don't vote for me, Lady Lampshadehead! Knowing I'm not going to get any, I quickly give myself my own round of applause. There are only a few sporadic bits of applause from the audience, and before I know it, Potsdam is already behind me, ushering me off the stage. "What a speech," Potsdam says as I move to take my seat in the front row. "Looks like someone is looking for points for honesty, Now it's time for you to make your decisions. If you'll each come up and place your vote." Everyone in the front row rises and forms a line to go up to the stage to place their vote. I quickly hop in line with everyone else and check off Minnie and Jacob's name before I check off my own name. These were going to be read publicly, after all, and I was hoping maybe to get at least a handful of pity votes thrown my way so it wasn't a complete shutout. As I make my way back to my seat, I purposely avoid Hieronymous's eyes as Jacob comes up to me. "That was some speech you gave," he says. "If you had used that one last year, I might have actually had a chance." "It was super close last year," I recall. "At least this year you're sure to be secretary. I know I voted for you." Jacob looks surprised. "Thank you," he manages, but I just shrug it off. "Well, you and Minnie work well together," I tell him. "You know how much Minnie is going to want to do everything herself again. It's better that she has people on her team that are going to work with her and let her do her own thing, rather than challenge her." "That's true," Jacob says slowly, and I can see the apology forming before I shake my head. If I had listened to my speech, I wouldn't have voted for me either. "You should go sit down," I tell him. "It looks like Potsdam is about to announce the votes." He nods, and as everyone takes their seats, Potsdam makes a big show of counting out the ballots one by one. It takes a long time, especially for class president, when all but a handful of ballots are for Minnie. Jacob wins by a considerable margin as well, which only leaves the question of who is going to be the next treasurer. "Good luck," Minnie whispers from beside me, as if I had any chance of winning this thing at all. "One vote for Manuel Aries," Potsdam begins. Now I finally do sneak a peek at Hieronymus. He is glaring at me, and he is not even trying to be subtle about it. I just do my best to look cool as I put my hands behind my head and lean back in my chair, gazing back at the high ceiling overhead till I try to look aloof as votes come pouring in for Manuel. "Oh, look, a vote for Tori Brown Grabiner," Potsdam explains. I'm thinking that must have been my ballot when she pulls out another. "Oh, and another vote for Tori Brown Grabiner. And another vote for Tori. And, oh look, another vote for Tori. And one for Manuel. And one for Tori." As she starts to call my name more and more, Hieronymus's expression softens from a glare to one of curiosity. There's something else in his gaze too, but I can't quite make out what it is. "And there we have it," Potsdam says at last. "Tori Brown Grabiner will be treasurer of the junior class." There is applause this time, and I let Jacob and Minnie come congratulate me, along with Donald, Ellen, and Virginia. "What the heck was that all about?" Virginia demands with a laugh as she throws her arm around me. "For a second there, I thought you were throwing in the towel. Remember, you're still a horse. Horses aren't quitters." "All part of my master plan," I say as I tap the side of my head. I expect them to laugh, but they all suddenly go quiet. "Mrs. Grabiner, a word?" Hieronymus asks as he steps up behind me, and I quickly flush as I turn around and follow him into the back part of the gymnasium where it was deserted. "What was that all about?" he demands. "What were you trying to prove up there?" "Well," I say at length, "I thought about it, and I didn't want to be treasurer, but you really wanted me to be treasurer, so I decided to just go ahead and go for it. But I knew if I said I wanted to be treasurer again, then nobody would vote for me. But people don't like you, so if I made it seem like picking me would make you as miserable as you make them, then I figured they'd vote for me. And they did. Reverse psychology." Hieronymus just shakes his head as he sighs. "Oh, Tori," he says before his expression changes into something I can't quite place. "You never fail to surprise me, do you?" "What?" "We'll discuss this later." He just shakes his head again as he lets out a small, shy smile. "I do believe we have Mr. Callister's election to be getting to, don't we?" I can't help but grin at him as I hold out my hand. "Let's go."